Hello, it's Tom Roper here, and today I'm going to show you how to transfer alerts from the HDAS search system into EBSCO and ProQuest. In a previous video, you may recall that I showed you how to do this into Ovid, which was a fairly straightforward procedure, and I promised to follow that up. So here we are today with the next installment. You'll find a link to the previous video in the notes below this one. So, how are we going to do this? You may recall that I trailed two methods of doing this. One is to use a thing called the polyglot search translator, which is produced by the Systematic Review's accelerator project based at Bond University in Queensland in Australia. There is also a method using 2D search. Now, I haven't investigated that one, so I'm not going to recommend that. I don't know enough about it myself, but you might care to try it, and I link to that below as well. But for today, it's going to be Polyglot Search Translator. So let's get started. So we're going to export an alert strategy from HDAS. We're going to edit that strategy with a text editor, translate it with Polyglot Search Translator, check that strategy, run it in EBSCO or ProQuest, as the case may be, check it again and save it as an alert. So first of all, we need to run our alerts. I've saved two here over in the nice Healthcare Databases Advanced Search HDAS interface. So if I go to alerts on the top menu bar, we can see them. There's one to run in CINAHL, so it's on a sort of nursing topic. And there's another one which unfortunately has a rather long name which won't display properly here. It's on trichotillomania. That's compulsive pulling out of hair. And the reason for doing that one is that that's a psychiatric mental health search that will work quite nicely in PsycInfo. So I want to run these, so I'll click on it and it runs. On my final line, if I select that and go to export options over here, I can choose how I want to export it. I can accept nearly all the defaults here, so include history is good. I want that. Medium, results, fine. The only thing I need to change is to make this into a Word file rather than a PDF. And if I click Save File, it will download. And there we are, it has. I'll go back here and I'll start a new search to clear my screen. Go back to my alerts, and here's my second one, trichotillomania, running in PsycInfo. Once again, last line, export, change to Word, save the file, and it will download. Here are the two files that we've downloaded. I'm going to open both of those. And within these, you need to go down to the full search strategy, that's at the end, and copy the first three columns. So we don't want the column with the results numbers in it. It's not the end of the world. If you bring it in, you can always edit these. But select those three columns, 7 lines, and copy. I'm going to put those into a text edit file. I use text edit because I'm on a Mac. Those of you using Windows machines, Notepad has very, very similar functionality. One thing that's quite important here, though it's not the end of the world, is to paste and match style rather than just paste, because pasting and match style will give you that. If you just simply paste, it will put it in table format. Okay, so we've got one in there. Let's go back to Word, find my other one, down to the search strategy at the end. First 3 columns, this one has 6 lines. Apple C to copy, over to text edit, and once again paste and match style. I'll save this so it has a name, and so if anything unpleasant happens, it will be safe. So that's got our strategies into a form in which we can use them. There's one more task we need to perform in TextEdit with these. You'll see that as well as line numbers, which we do want, and the search statements themselves, we also have the name of the database in there. Now, for our purposes, we don't need those in when we take these over into the Polyglot Search Translator. So very easy to get rid of them. Just do a find and replace. So I'm going to find and replace. And first of all, I will ask it to look for CINAHL and replace with nothing. Replace all, and that's gone. And then I'm going to do the same with PsycInfo, replace all, and they've gone too. You'll see there is a gap. I did wonder whether it's necessary to remove tab characters and spaces, but Polyglot Search Translator seems to cope with those quite well, so I don't need to do that. I now have searches in a form where I can take them off into Polyglot Search Translator. So now the fun starts. Now we can start using the Polyglot Search Translator. So it's hosted, as I think I said, at the Institute for Evidence-Based Healthcare's SR Accelerator project. It's part of Bond University on the lovely Gold Coast of Queensland, Australia. So let's go to Polyglot Search and see what we have. So we have a box into which we can paste a query, and it says type in a PubMed or Ovid Medline query. So an HDAS search such as we've created and have sitting in TextEdit will work perfectly well here. You don't need to worry about replacing line references, leave that blank. So let's go over here and let's select our first search. So I've got that one here, lines 1 to 7. Copy it, paste, and that seems to have worked fairly well. It's gone in there. So what we now need to do is tell Polyglot what we want this to be translated into. And you'll see you have a number of options down here, Cochrane, Embase through Elsevier, that's embase.com, Embase through Ovid, CINAHL through EBSCO, that sounds exactly right. And look, it's actually done our search for us already. I didn't need to invoke anything, I just click on the down arrow next to that and there is my version of it. So I will look at it and give it the once over. Broadly speaking, that's worked very well. I'm going to copy and paste that back into my TextEdit document. So I've got this. So let's put it down here. Now, there is a mistake in this. I don't know whether it's obvious to you, but you'll know, I think, that when specifying a search line in EBSCO's interface, you need to prefix the number with an S. And for some reason, Polyglot Search Translator has done that with part of it, but it hasn't with the other. So if we look at line 3 here, it's given us S1 or 2. What that would do in EBSCO would be to look for our first line of the search, that's the thesaurus term bezoars, or the number 2 anywhere in a text. Now that isn't what we want to do here, clearly, is it? We wanted to specify both of those. So I could change those and put an S in front of there. And if you wanted to edit these so as they look nice, you could do that. Actually, practically speaking, when we go over to the EBSCO interface, I'm going to do things slightly differently. So I'm going to recreate the search more or less line by line. So I think I'll wait and do my combining in EBSCO. So in fact, the fact that it hasn't translated those correctly doesn't really trouble us too much. But be aware that that does seem to be a flaw in the database. Otherwise, if you know the EBSCO syntax, you'll see that this has worked pretty well. One of the things that we're used to in HDAS, and Ovid to an extent mimics this behavior as well, is searching in title and abstract by default in Ovid. In fact, that goes in, they tend to use the multipurpose field by default. So this has reproduced this, but the way you reproduce that in EBSCO is to specify your term either in title bezoar, as we have here, or abstract bezoar. But that's worked nicely. The thesaurus terms here are in the way that we want them to be, so bezoars has a plus after it to indicate that it's going to be exploded. So that all looks pretty good. Next, let's also do the same with our trichotillomania search. So once more, I will copy and paste that back to Polyglot and paste that over. Notice that you can import a search from a text file if you wanted to, but I find it just as easy to copy and paste. Down our options we go, and look, without us having to do anything, actually it's translated that into CINAHL EBSCO format. However, that's not what we want for this one, because this is a PsycInfo search, so we're wanting to set up an alert in PsycInfo. And we go down, and we see immediately a heffalump trap, because there is PsycInfo, Alder's brass, and we might think, oh, well, let's use that. But that's PsycInfo through Ovid. Sadly, we do not have that. We have PsycInfo through ProQuest. So we want to see what the strategy would look like in ProQuest. So click on the arrow there to expand that. And there it is. And again, I can look at that and I can see that it has translated that pretty well. Again, I'm going to do my search combining in the database interface rather than here. So I'm leaving out the last two lines, which are combining elements of this search. So let's take that over to text edit. And just save that to be on the safe side. So I've now got versions of both my strategies sitting there in text edit. Okay, at last we get to access the databases in anger. So I'm going to log into my Athens, and it's remembered me, which is nice. And here I have the lists of resources that are accessible to me through my Open Athens password, and I've favorited the three native interface database providers. So first and foremost is EBSCO, so let's do the EBSCO search first. So if I click on that, off we go. Please wait while we transfer you to EBSCO Information Services, but by all means. We want the research databases here, not these other services that are on offer. And we want to pick CINAHL, because we're going to be running our CINAHL search first. Here we are. It's taken us into advanced search, and we have a form. So that's nice, because that's going to make it nice and easy to bring our stuff in. So I'm going over to text edit, and I'm going to get some elements from this. So first line in there. I don't need to specify any fields because it knows that I'm using its syntax. And then I want to OR that with the next line of my strategy, because these were two lines that were designed to find the first concept in this search. So that all looks good. Hit search and away we go. And here we are, it's building up our search strategy line by line. So that's what it's found. So it searched for that thesaurus term or those strings truncated either in title or abstract. Great stuff. As I said, I'm going to do my combining in a moment. So what I want now is my next concept. So that's the thesaurus term for carbonated beverages. Then change my Boolean operator here to OR. Copy that rather longer line, which is designed to find every sort of carbonated drink under the sun, and hit search again. Okay, I quickly look at the results to make sure that they're sensible. Always helpful if you want to go back to HDAS and look at the sorts of results that it found in HDAS and compare those to the sorts that you're finding in this new interface. They should correspond. If there's wild variance between the two, then something has gone wrong. But this all looks pretty good, so I can combine these now. So I simply combine with AND. Marvellous. And it's found 14 results. So that's running the strategy across the whole of CINAHL. But what I want to do is to set up an alert here. So I want to be alerted when new materials added to the database that matches my strategy. So I need to go to Save Searches and Alerts. This may not work because I haven't actually signed into my folder yet. But let's see, if I look at my folder, yes, it has got items in it, so it now knows that it's me. So you'll remember the distinction here between signing into a database with your NHS Athens username and password, which simply tells you that you have rights to use it. But then if you want to do any personalization, anything that's specific to you, you'll need to use a personal account, either create one or you've already got one, log into it. So now, mine is now working. So I can click on Save Searches and Alerts. I can give it a name. I can add a description if I want to, that's not mandatory. I want to be sure that I turn this into an alert here, and then it will give me various options about how frequently I want it run, how I want and who I want the emails to go to, who I want them to appear as coming from, and all the rest of it. So if I want to make all those choices, I then hit save, and that is my alert ready in EBSCO. So let's now try running a search in PsycInfo and setting up an alert. So I'll go to ProQuest, who are the people through whom we have PsycInfo. Now, there is a heffalump trap here that you need to be aware of, and that is that ProQuest, when you log in, defaults to giving you all 8 databases. So you'll see up there, databases 8. So if I try searching in here for something, it's going to look in all 8 databases and find lots and lots of stuff. Now we wanted to search up for a particular alert, so we want to restrict ourselves to searching in PsycInfo. So easy to do that. Deselect everything there. Find PsycInfo. That's it. 1806 to current. Use selected database, and that's great. Okay. It's put us into basic search. We don't want to be there. We want to be in advanced search to do the sorts of things that we want to do. So I'm going to select that. And here we are. And I think I should be able to use command line here. Command line doesn't like it if you have large numbers of lines in your searches. I think the maximum you can put into command line is 5, but we actually have 4 lines that we're going to do here, so we should be all right. So I don't need to worry about using any of these drop-down lists at the top. I can paste in my strategy there and hit search. Okay, now, if you're following my advice of watching out for weird sorts of results, you will immediately look at that and think, crikey, 134,000 results and then some. What's going on here? But remember, we haven't done any combining yet. So actually, that has worked quite well. And if I click on recent searches, you can see how it's worked. So it has, oh, I'm sorry, Mary's had a little lamb was still in there, and I'm going to delete that because we don't really want that. That makes me look awfully unprofessional, which I would never be. Okay, there's the 4 lines of our search, but we need to do some combining. So line 2 is our thesaurus search. Line 3 is a search for the precise term truncated. Line 4 finds us hair near pull, truncated, and then this one finds us all sorts of things to do with compulsions, disorders, obsessive, pathologic, repetition. So what we want to do is to combine lines 5 and 4 with and then or those with lines 3 and 2. So I can do that very easily. I want to bracket to control the order in which these commands are processed. And that should do the trick. Hurrah! Now we got down to 1,274 results, which is more reasonable. Note that another thing that ProQuest does is to default to showing you everything in relevance order. I dare say they think they're being helpful here, but it's like pets and children being helpful, isn't it? We don't want that, actually. We usually, particularly when we're setting up an alert, want to see that the most recent ones are displaying first. So I'll just change that, and there we are. Most recent ones first. Always a good idea to eyeball these to make sure that we are finding the right sorts of things. I'm not looking at these in any particularly rigorous way, but they do look relevant to me. So I would say that our search has probably worked fairly well. Okay, so we want to save our search as an alert. Again, I'm not sure that it's remembered me. I may need to log into my personal account. But let's click on that and create alert and see what happens. I think it does want me to log in, so I will go up to that, sign into my research. And there we are. Right. I need to go back to advanced search because that's taken me to my research folder. Recent searches. There it is. Actions, create alert. And now, again, I will, if I was doing this in real life, I would put some details in here. I would make them memorable and unique. I would set up the schedules, I'd define, answer all these questions, and then create my alert. And that is what you do. So to conclude, a few caveats maybe about using the polyglot translator. We saw that you need sometimes to check the way it's translated. So there were those issues with search lines, for example. Bear in mind, of course, that it's translating for search syntax, not for search terms. So if you try to take a search from one database and run it in another one, it won't, for example, translate thesaurus terms reliably. You're going to need to do that on your own. But if you're taking an HDAS alert that you set up in one database and running it in the same database on a different interface, then Polyglot Translator is, I think, the way to go. I suppose the other thing to say is, and this is something we always say, isn't it? Do check what your search is doing. Always be on the lookout for odd-looking results, so lines that return 0 when you would expect them to return something, or lines that return unreasonably large numbers of results, far more than you expected. Your intuition is quite a good guide to whether something's going wrong or not. And if something is going wrong, then dissect your search, break it down element by element, and see which element it is that's failing you. But with all that said, I think this is quite a reliable and quick way to get your HDAS alerts out and into the native interfaces. And from April of next year, that's where you'll be setting up alerts. So happy searching. I'll draw your attention to this paper written by the Polyglot Search team, and I look forward to talking to you again.